flying now. Powered by a 600 horsepower Pratt & Whitney radial engine, Mr. Kevin Russo in the SNJ Texan, built by North American. There it is. Listen to the sound of that engine. You'll be seeing and hearing other aircraft like the Texan, as you see on the screens. That beautiful airplane, as it climbs into the sky, the moment he'll be getting ready to do the demo. He joined the United States Air Force Reserve when he was just 22 years old. Pilot training at Williams Air Force Base in Arizona. And flew jets, the T-37 Trainer, the T-38 Talon, the C-141B Starlifter, and now he flies the C-17 Globemaster III. So he was seeing one of his own type of airplanes taken off. The C-17 won't do that though, as Kevin Russo starts off with a quarter clover loop, and up he goes into the beautiful blue skies over Andrews Air Force Base with another roundhouse barnstormer's loop. It's the kind of maneuver done by so many aerial performers. Back in the days of the barnstormers after World War I, when pilots who came home from World War I wanted to continue to fly, many of them would buy surplus Jenny trainers, Curtiss Jenny trainers, and they would go from place to place and make money giving rides. But in order to attract attention, they'd fly over a town, do some aerial maneuvers, some stunts as it were, like loops and rolls and spins, and then they land at a farmer's field and give rides for $5 or $10 a piece. The North American Texan Trainer. The Navy called it the SNJ. The Army Air Force called it the AT-6, Advanced Trainer number 6. And that's why it was known as the Texan. It was also used by the Royal Air Force and the Royal Canadian Air Force. They called it the Harvard. The Royal Australian Air Force called it the Whirlaway. Nearly 30 Allied nations flew this aircraft, with a production run that spanned from 1939 to 1945. There you see the 4-point hesitation roll. This is a 5,500-pound airplane, over 2.5 tons, and just 600 horsepower powering it. And Kevin is doing an awesome job making it do air show aerobatics here at Stage Center at the premier aerial event here in North America, the Joint Service Open House for 2007. Now kids, shield your eyes from the sun. Don't be looking to the sun. Here comes the smoke again. As Kevin lets the nose come forward, he'll accelerate to about 160 miles per hour. He'll get out to the left-hand side of our aerobatic area, what we call the aerobatic box. He'll pull back on the stick and experience about 3 Gs, or 3 times his normal body weight. Right there, he's weightless. Now watch him come down to 45 and throw the stick to the right with a 1/2 Cuban 8 maneuver. It's called a Cuban 8 because back in 1936 at the Miami Air Races, the late Len Povey was doing a demonstration. And at that time, he was doing a loop, like you see Kevin Russo doing now, although he's rolling it out just as Len Povey did, because Len Povey was too fast and too low at the top of the loop. A smoking hole in the ground. He did exactly what Kevin did, and that's roll the airplane upright after 5/8 of a loop and get himself upright. He did the same thing the other direction, made a horizontal 8 in the sky. Somebody asked the announcer, at least the legend is, somebody asked the announcer what it was, and he said, well, Len Povey's trained in the Cuban Air Force, we'll call it a Cuban 8, and the name stuck since 1936. So that's one of those maneuvers you'll see other aircraft perform here today. You saw a 4-point hesitation roll. This is the 8-point hesitation roll. Stopping the airplane precisely 45 degrees in section. The growl you hear is that of the propeller tips going supersonic at about 2,500 revolutions per minute. That's a big old Hamilton standard propeller. With a 9-foot diameter, as Kevin performs a beautiful barrel roll. That is a deceptively simple-looking maneuver. But Kevin has to pick out a point 45 degrees up and to the left of his airplane, an imaginary point in the sky, and roll around it, starting and stopping at the same altitude and there you have a 16-point hesitation roll. Now we're talking precision, without a doubt. I think he deserves a great round of applause to do a 16-point roll in a Texan, a 60-year-old airplane, close to 70. Actually, this was built in 1944, so it's a 63-year-old airplane. One of the lowest times Texans of all that were built. The Texan was an advanced trainer. It did see combat, not in World War II, but in the Korean War. At the beginning of the jet age, they'd fly low and slow, spot a target, climb back around, put a white phosphorus rocket on the target. That white phosphorus would make a ton of white smoke. He'd call the jets and say, hit the smoke. Here's a photo pass, lots of left aileron. Take a look at Kevin Russo as he comes across the show line. You get a chance to get a great picture of one of those extreme for the United States Air Force, as well as the Navy and so many other services. Said, hey, we want you, North American Aviation, to build somebody else's airplane. Well, Dutch Kindleberger said, we don't want to do that. And with some technology that he and Edgar Schmid and Ray Rice and Lee Atwood, 3 of the chief designers at North American, had come up with, in a 1938 visit to Germany, they learned about something called the laminar flow wing. And that was the beginning of the development of the airplane that North American said that they would develop for the Royal Air Force. They said, we don't want to build somebody else's airplane, give us 120 days. And 120 days later, they came up with the airplane that became the North American Mustang. That's what it was called by the Royal Air Force, and that name is what stuck on an airplane that could fly over 425 miles an hour. The original Mustang had a V12 Allison engine in it, but it didn't perform well at altitude. So the Royal Air Force took one of their Rolls-Royce Merlin V12 liquid-cooled engines and put it in their version of the Mustang, and it gave it the high altitude performance that it needed, and the Mustang was born. All because North American Aviation did such a great job at building the SNJ advanced trainer that you see flown here today and just rolling out on runway 1 left here by Kevin Russo. He'll be